Imagine being on live TV, cameras glaring, everyone waiting to pounce, and you just decide you're done playing along. That's exactly what Senator John Fetterman did on The View, and it sent shockwaves. When a host tried to corner him into blaming Republicans for a government shutdown, Fetterman looked right into the camera and dropped a bombshell: "My party crossed the line." The room went silent. You could feel the tension. Millions watching suddenly realized someone, finally, had enough. What happened next wasn't just about Fetterman. It exposed a deep, ugly crack running right through the heart of the Democratic Party, a fracture hidden for years, now ripped wide open for everyone to see. Here's a setup. The View company host Sunny Host was ready, her talking points polished, aiming to reinforce the narrative that Republicans were the sole villains of the shutdown. She pushed Fetterman. Why give in now when the polls are on your side? But Fetterman didn't take the bait. Instead, he calmly explained how the shutdown was hurting real people, military families without paychecks, air travel becoming unsafe, and millions about to lose food assistance. That was a red line for me, he declared, that I can't cross as a Democrat. Let that sink in for a moment. He didn't blame the system, he blamed his own party. He broke rank, putting principles over loyalty. The audience gasped. Sunny Host's face showed pure surprise. Social media exploded. In modern politics, you just don't do that. You don't criticize your own side on enemy territory. You don't hand the opposition a soundbite. But Fetterman did. And it wasn't just a soundbite, it was a declaration. It signaled a fundamental shift, not just in him, but in the ground beneath the Democratic Party's feet. If a sitting senator from a crucial state like Pennsylvania can say, "We've gone too far," how many others are thinking the same thing, just staying quiet? Yeah. This wasn't some abstract policy debate. This was visceral. Fetterman, who spent years working in communities where government assistance is a lifeline, wasn't willing to play games with people's lives. Imagine a grandparent struggling to buy groceries because their food stamps vanished overnight, or a soldier overseas worrying if their family can pay rent because their paycheck is delayed by political squabbling. That's why his words carried so much weight. He spoke with the authority of someone who truly understood. Yeah. Now, you might think this was a spontaneous moment, but the pressure had been building for weeks. What Fetterman did was the final crack in a dam, straining under a party at war with itself. The government shutdown was a deliberate strategy by Democratic leadership to corner Republicans, betting that public opinion would turn against the GOP. And for a while it seemed to work. Polls showed Americans blamed Republicans. But then 8 Democrats, including Fetterman, broke ranks and voted with Republicans to reopen the government. Not because they agreed with the GOP, but because they saw the suffering and said, enough. This has to stop. Right? The Democratic establishment erupted. Progressive leaders accused them of betrayal. Even some moderates blamed Schumer for political malpractice. In the middle of this chaos stood Fetterman, unflinching. He refused lectures from those in deep blue districts who never faced real consequences. "I represent Pennsylvania," he stated, "steel towns and coal communities, who don't care about your ideological purity tests. They care about whether they can put food on the table." You might wonder, who is this guy? Just a few years ago, Fetterman was barely on the national radar, looking and talking differently than the typical politician. Then he had a severe stroke, the kind that derails careers. But he didn't fade away. He came back different, with a clarity only someone who has faced death and depression can have. He talks openly about battling dark thoughts, about clawing his way out of that pit. That's the man who walked onto The View. That's the man who refused to play along. When you've been that close to losing everything, you stop caring about protecting your political career. You start caring about something bigger. That authenticity makes him dangerous to his own side. He exposed something the Democratic Party tries to hide. They are deeply fractured, not a united front. but a party torn between old guard moderates who believe in compromise and new wave progressives who see compromise as betrayal. When that facade cracks on national TV, when the infighting and willingness to hurt ordinary people for political gain are exposed, you can't just put the mask back on. The media tried to spin it, but truth, once slipped, spreads like wildfire. Clips of Fetterman went viral, shared by conservatives, independents, and even Democrats tired of the games. The View's attempt to corner him backfired spectacularly, giving him a platform to speak truth to millions. This isn't just about Fetterman, it represents a deep tension tearing the Democratic Party apart for years. They used to be the party of working-class union members, factory towns. But somewhere along the way, the focus shifted to cultural issues, to college-educated urban voters, leaving behind the traditional base. Guys like Fetterman are caught in the middle. He's still that working-class Democrat, a mayor of a struggling steel town, someone who knows what it's like when a factory closes. But the loudest voices in the modern Democratic Party have little patience for that worldview. They demand purity. If you step out of line, if you say shutting down the government hurts people, you're branded a traitor. This is the dilemma for every moderate Democrat. Do you stand for what you believe is right, risking your career, or fall in line? Fetterman made his choice, and he wasn't the only one feeling the heat. Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer's approval ratings were cratering, even among Democrats. Progressives openly called for him to step down. There were even rumors AOC might primary him. Schumer, facing rebellion, decided to keep the government shut down, betting he could break Republicans before his own party broke him. He lost that bet. When those 8 Democrats, including Fetterman, voted to reopen the government, it was a public humiliation for Schumer. It showed he couldn't keep his own caucus in line. It showed weakness. Why does any of this matter to you? Because this isn't just about politics. It's about whether we still have leaders willing to tell the truth, even when it's inconvenient. Fetterman's journey, his stroke, his depression, the public humiliation of his debate performance, gives him a freedom most politicians don't have. He fought through hell, and something crystallized. If he was going to be in public service, it would be on his terms, authentic and meaningful. That's the man who said, "My party crossed a line," not reading from a script, but speaking from a place of integrity. And that authenticity is what Americans are desperate for. We're tired, aren't we? Tired of being lied to, of politicians saying one thing and doing another. Fetterman's message is simple: country over party, people over politics, truth over spin. Republicans praised him, not because they agree with him, but because they recognize something genuine. Lindsey Graham even said Fetterman might be one of the few Democrats who can survive in this environment because people trust him. Voters respond to authenticity, even when they disagree. So, what's next? Will Fetterman leave the Democratic Party? Some think he should. Republicans have even suggested he be welcome. His positions, strong support for Israel, skepticism of progressive demands, focus on kitchen table issues, don't fit neatly into today's Democratic coalition. He's a throwback. But I don't think he's going to switch parties, at least not yet. He still believes the Democratic Party should be the party of working people, and he's willing to fight for that. His stand has already changed the conversation, giving cover to other moderate Democrats who are afraid to speak out. It's forced Democratic leadership to confront their failing strategy. It's a reminder that there are still people in Washington who haven't completely lost their way. The progressive wing is furious. The moderate wing is exhausted. Republicans are watching with glee. But here's what nobody's really talking about. The same fault lines exist on the Republican side. Fetterman's moment on The View cut through all of that It reminded us that before we are Democrats or Republicans, we are Americans, and the country works better when leaders remember that. He refused to play the game, told the truth, and exposed how broken our political system has become, not to make a grand statement, but because he simply can't stomach the dishonesty anymore. That's not partisan, that's human. The question now is whether his example inspires others. Will more leaders on both sides decide enough is enough? Will voters reward that kind of courage or punish it? I'd like to believe we reward it. I'd like to believe most Americans are hungry for leaders who will tell them the truth, put the country ahead of their careers, and actually mean it when they take an oath to serve. Fetterman gave us a glimpse of what that looks like, and whether you agree with him on every issue or not, I think we can all appreciate the rarity of watching a politician say exactly what they mean, consequences be damned. So what do you think? Did Fetterman prove there's still honesty left in politics, or did he just burn his last bridge with his own party? Is this the beginning of something bigger, a realignment where voters choose character over party labels? Or just one moment that'll be forgotten by next week's news cycle? I genuinely want to know what you think. Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I actually read them, and some of the best insights come from you, people who have lived through enough political cycles to see the patterns, who can cut through the noise and see what truly matters. And if you believe moments like this deserve to be amplified, do me a favor, hit that like button, share this video with someone who needs to hear it. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next time we break down something important that the mainstream media either ignores or spins beyond recognition. Because here's the truth. The more people who see this, the harder it becomes for anyone to bury it. The harder it becomes to pretend everything's fine, that the system's working, that we don't desperately need leaders with the courage to stand up and tell the truth. Fetterman did that one moment on live television. He reminded us what leadership can look like when it's not filtered through consultants and focus groups and political calculation. Whether that moment turns into something more, that's up to all of us. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.